Good afternoon, class. My name is Nicole Gerling, and I am going to be going over the history of teacher unions, and then we're going to get into the cons of the teacher unions and how they affect teachers. So the history of teacher unions is filled with achievements in bettering working conditions, salaries, and professional recognition. There are two well-known unions, the American Federation of Teachers, known as AFT, and the National Education Association, known as the NEA. They started mid to late 1800s and continued to grow into the 1900s and even the 2000s and present. In regards to back then, mid to 1800s, during that time frame, predominantly teachers were women. Women were the ones who were in the classrooms teaching the students. And unfortunately, also during that time frame, women were not seen as equal, so they had to fight harder for bettering their working conditions, to get better salaries and the professional recognition. And where that is that teaching at one point wasn't even seen as a profession, so they had to fight to be recognized as a profession, as a teacher. So, and also at one point, a teacher had to be concerned as to whether or not, if they were part of a union, if they were going to lose their job. There was at one point where you could be fired for being part of a union. So there's also been setbacks, and some of those are seen in the cons of teacher unions. So the teacher unions throughout their evolution have made significant strides in advocating for educators. However, as unions have grown in influence, certain criticisms have emerged that raise their impact on both teachers and the education system. But today we're going to mostly focus in on how those criticisms are impacting teachers. So we're going to dive into some of those critiques, particularly focusing on issues like the financial burden of the union dues, the political standings of the union that you were part of, and teacher pay. So in regards to teacher unions, at one point there were some states that whether you were a member or not a member, you were required to pay what's called union dues. The teacher needs to decide whether to join the union, but in order to do so, they need to pay the fees. In 2018, there was a Supreme Court ruling that stated that teachers no longer need to pay dues if they are not part of that union. So that's a good thing that has happened. Now, your union dues go to local, state, and national unions, organizations. And the NEA suggests that members pay total dues annually, usually between $700 and $900 a year is what the teacher is paying into those unions. So, okay, say you're a new teacher and you're making $36,000 a year, and then you have a teacher who's been teaching for 20 years and they're making like $86,000 a year. They're both paying the same amount annually if they're in the same state. So then if you think about a teacher who's new, who's only getting paid $36,000 a year, and almost 1,000 of that a year is going towards their union dues, that can be financially burdening on them because they're losing out on that money that they could be using. Granted, they do have benefits, but do they outweigh the cons? And then you have the teacher, like in my example, who's been there for 20 years. They're paying the same, but they've had a longer time and access to those dues. So that's just something that is unfortunately something that is affecting our teachers. Now, going into the political aspect, like the way that the dues that are collected, the unions are allowed to choose within certain limitations what political activities or lobbying they choose to do this on. And in 2022, less than 8% of the NEA's Illinois subsidiary was used in representing teachers. That's only 8% of what that union brought in, that teachers paid, that was actually being put back into representing teachers. And in that same year, Illinois spent $119.6 million on contributions, gifts, and grants. So that's $119.6 million that was used of those teachers' union dues that went towards something other than representing them as teachers and what they are paying them for. So that's just another factor in which to think about when you become a teacher and thinking about being a part of a union. If you have the same political views as the union organization that you are going to be part of, these things may not bother you. But if you don't have the same political views as this organization, unfortunately, when you become a member, you really don't have that much say as to which way it goes. They've already have their political views set in place, and they're going to choose where that money goes. Now, in regards to teacher pay. Teacher pay has been seen as being stagnant recently. There's a union-forced pay scale. Now, what this is where, regardless of a teacher's hard work ethic or lack of work ethic, they get paid the same. Usually goes by years of work of service. So what that means is work of service is if you both have been there for 10 years, you're both going to get the same pay. It's not usually, it has to be the same years. That's how they figure that. And then, so someone who puts in minimal effort into teaching and you put in a lot, or say you've gone to webinars or seminars to learn more about doing your teaching, you're still getting paid the same as that other teacher who may not have gone to webinars or seminars to further their education. In some schools, under union negotiated contracts, district teachers get the same annual percent raise regardless of performance. In some cases, this can hinder new teachers because you're new to the district, and because your annual percentage raise goes by what you're currently making at that point in time, someone who's been there longer than someone who's been there shorter, even though you're getting the same percent, they're still getting more because it goes by a percentage of what they're already making. And again, that can go reverse. So where a teacher who has been there longer, getting the same percentage raise as someone who's new. So it can go both ways. So this is where, in regards to pay, where a lot of burnout from teachers happen, because there's a lot of stress put on the teacher to make sure that they are meeting everything that is required of them, but they're still getting paid the same as someone who's, say, not putting in the same effort. So today we've gone over union dues, the political side of it, and the teacher pay. There are other cons to teacher unions. I just felt that these were the main three that are probably the most affected, or the teachers are most affected by. So what I want you to think about is what role teacher unions play in education today. After learning about the pros and the cons of teacher unions, after hearing and reading about teacher unions, where do you think you are going to be standing on that idea of whether or not you want to become a part of a union or not part of a union when you become a teacher? So these are some of the questions that I want you to start thinking about now. There's going to be some articles that you'll be reading to get some more information on what I've already gone over, and then we'll do a discussion in regards to what we learned today. And I really hope that this has helped you in making those decisions that you may need to be making once you become a teacher. And again, I want to thank you for allowing me to teach you the cons of teacher unions. I hope you have a great day, and thank you.